When you're in the pain, rarely, if ever, do we take heart in the fact that God has a promise for you. A promise of healing, a promise of purpose, a promise of the life that He has for you. There's 3 times in my life that I know God just spoke to me. And it was becoming a chiropractor, marrying Marilee, and we'll save the next one. We got married in 1996.
We had a great relationship. We were best friends. I respected him above all else because he was a man of integrity.
I mean, life was very good. I mean, you know, married, bought a house. We had 2 young boys, Daniel and Isaac. I was arguably in the best shape of my life, racing mountain bikes at the expert level, and I was doing some road racing, and I was training for that. Life couldn't have been better. I guess it was 1999, and I became unexplainably sick.
It was confusing, for lack of a better word.
I thought I was overtraining. I took time off the bike. I came back and I wasn't any better, maybe worse. Took more time off. Then it went beyond fatigue, and then it went into weird anxiety. And then I started not sleeping. Then I became like oddly sound sensitive.
He couldn't handle a baby crying. He couldn't handle me putting dishes away.
As a husband, I started overreacting, anger. As a father, I was just flipping out on the kids, just kid stuff.
The hard thing for me was knowing he couldn't be the dad he wanted to be. It was always the anticipation of what could happen next.
I never planned suicide, but for sure, I would rather have died than lived the rest of my life like that. In some ways, it was harder on her than me. It was hard, you know. In one of those moments of her crying out to God, I'm sure, God spoke to her heart.
I remember just stopping, you know, in a moment in time and said, Lord, what is happening to Danny? I just heard him say, not only will Danny get well, but I'm going to use him to take a message to the world.
And she would speak that, and I didn't want to hear that at all. How that made me feel is angry, actually, because I thought, how dare her put this on me? I can't even get myself well. I definitely didn't sit idle. You know, I dug in to find answers. I was driven, you know, to find the cause. And when I couldn't sleep at night, I was up trying to figure it out.
It took 3.5 years of traveling down a lot of different rabbit holes, but every one of those rabbit holes led him into this understanding.
I remember I was online and I found Mad Hatter's disease. Mad Hatter's disease was people making felt hats. They used mercury as part of the process to avoid mold in the felt. I had all the symptoms. I went back to my cycling journal. It all started, the first symptoms started a few days after I had silver fillings, amalgam fillings drilled out. They contained 50% mercury. One of the things that I learned is it's never one thing. What 3 stressors came together that started it? It could be physical, chemical, or emotional. But it's the person whose stress bucket is more full who typically gets hit the hardest. That was me. I had accumulated this mercury over the years. At that time, I was living in an older home that had a low-grade mold exposure. Mold is another neurotoxin. And then I was training. So I had a physical stress, the mold, the mercury, perfect storm, boom, illness began.
Now all these different parts of understanding the thyroid and the adrenals and the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus, all this stuff is fitting together perfectly. Then it became like a big equation and one that I knew that God would solve.
How did I get well? I got to those causes, figured it out, and God showed me the way. Then I figured it out how to get the mercury out of my brain. I got myself to the point of, okay, you know, I'm better. And then here I am functioning still as a chiropractor. Literally, I developed a whole different practice based around this. So from pain to purpose, right? Here I am, it was being birthed to the point where I was doing chiropractic less and less days, and I was doing more, you know, sitting down with very sick and challenged people, leaving a wake of people that were helped, right? So, and those people would tell other people. It's become a family business. My son said, Dad, look, you know, your message needs to go to the world. Put it in a whole university and scale it and bring it to the world. Pompa program was born. We learned about the healing. This is critical. Your body's too smart to eat good salad.
Now with the Pompa program and my kids and their gifts and talents, I am so aware that it is the fulfillment of the promise.
Father, we thank you. I said from pain to purpose, but it's from pain to purpose to promise. Because as we have a time right now where more and more people are sick and challenged without answers, it's more and more every day. And I know that this is what I'm called to. It is getting to the causes. And I'm not smart enough to come up with that. Again, I only came up with it because God walked me through it. My wife was right. Here we are.
There is hope. There is absolutely hope. Not only for us and many others, it's been rooted in our faith, but also there is information. There is a tangible process that works because it supports the way the body was designed.
I believe God has that promise for so many people. How many people are crying out for answers? How many people? We have an answer, right? But it's the answer to the cry. There's a promise.